Hello, everyone. Welcome aboard Unfiltered Brew Air Flight 143 to Turbulence and T. We ask that you fasten your seatbelts, secure your emotional baggage, and prepare for unexpected turbulence.
And if this is your first time flying with us, please know that exits are absolutely located nowhere because you're stuck with us for the next 45 minutes. Sit back, relax, and maybe grab an espresso martini because the pilot is literally in the room.
Captain Zack Coffey, welcome to
Welcome.
So good to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for taking time to fly with us.
Let's hope it's going to be a smooth flight.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Even though I like a little turbulence.
Okay, Kat's already getting a little excited here.
Ooh.
So let's take it back a step and tell us, why did you pursue aviation? What got you into flying planes from the get-go?
All right, so loaded question, but initially I wanted to fly for the military, so I went to the Naval Academy after high school. And I realized that that was not ultimately what I wanted to do. So I left the Naval Academy and I chased this flying dream all around the U.S. So I ended up moving to Florida, lived there for a year, lived through a hurricane, and then decided I didn't like hurricanes all that much, moved back to Ohio, and I flight instructed up here for 2 years. Earned my Gold SEAL certificate, which is essentially the upper echelon of flight instructors, and then started working up here in Cleveland.
That's awesome. And so did you start just teaching then people to fly?
Yeah, 2 years of literally just teaching people how to fly from
propeller planes,
little tiny little 2 and 4 seaters.
Wow. I got on one of those once. It was actually nice. The plane that I got on, my friend owns, and he says there's a parachute in there in case it goes wrong.
Is that true?
If it was probably a Cirrus, if that's the case, or it was a special mod, but some of them do, yeah.
What's the worst experience you've had in those small planes?
I've had a student shut the engine off in the middle of flight.
What?
Oh my God.
So what happens then? Do you go into free fall or do you fly?
So when an airplane, especially one of those smaller ones, one engine airplanes, lose an engine, they become what you would call a paper airplane, right? It's a glider. So they're going to be up there for a couple minutes where you can glide around and sort of figure out.
So you'll survive for the first few minutes.
Right.
Okay.
For the first few minutes, you're in the air and then eventually you're on the ground. But I had to take over, get the engine restarted. And then I was like, hey, this flight lesson's over. Let's go land. I'm going to go home and decompress a little bit because it was a crazy day.
And how do you just shut off an engine like that on a plane?
So,
isn't it is it a little key fob or is it a button that he accidentally hit?
There's so many buttons. I mean, I can't imagine.
I don't know. I've only been in a cockpit once in my entire life when I was very, very young. And it's scary. There's a lot of buttons, it's makes me want to just push every single button in there. How do you manage controlling all that and staying calm in such a critical time, moment? How do you stay calm?
Yeah, so in those smaller planes especially, there's a lot less buttons and whatnot. The one that the student did, there's a red knob, right? And I always tell everybody, I'm like, this big red knob, and you're in the air, you never want to pull the big red knob out.
Red, right?
There's a reason for that, yeah.
Also, they have to pull it.
So
it's
you
not like a
pull it out, yeah.
Push it. Okay.
So he grabbed it, thought it was the throttle. He wanted to slow the airplane down.
Oh my God.
He grabbed the red knob, pulled it, boom. Now we don't have an engine. And basically all I had to do was put that back in, and luckily the engine came back on.
Oh my God.
If it wouldn't have done it with that, there was other things that I could do.
Emergency landing.
Right.
And were you near an airport?
Yeah, we were right next to an airport.
Okay.
He did it actually as part of a before landing checklist.
Okay.
So you can't turn it back on?
He turned it into a before landing with no engine checklist.
Oh
yeah,
God,
it was a little bit
insane.
crazy. But that's part of learning, and that's
Okay.
that was what my job was for 2 full years, is dealing with things like that.
Wow, this is nerve-wracking.
So you have to land when that happens. You can't fix it in the air.
You can. I've also done it where we've turned not on purpose, but a student has accidentally shut the engine off in the air at a couple thousand feet, and you can get it back on no problem, and then you can just keep flying around.
Wow, that's kind of insane.
Yeah.
So what makes the plane be in air? How can it fly? That's just the question I've always wondered. How can it stay up in the air?
Drag force, right? And thrust.
So yeah, this gets into aerodynamics, yeah. And so this is where it's kind of really cool to be a pilot, because you get to learn about these things. Essentially, it's Bernoulli's principle, which we don't have to get all into that. But
I used to know the equation, not anymore. But yeah, it's
so
PTSD of
there's
school.
Bernoulli's principle, and then there's Newton's third law.
Yeah.
And those two things are kind of the main gist of how airplanes fly, which is how like someone like the Wright brothers figured it out, is they used these principles and these laws that were already around, and they were like, how can we make this airplane fly using what we already know?
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I remember when I first met you, Zach, and you were still a flight instructor, and I said, you're going to be a pilot because you got into the whole science and aerodynamics. I'm like, you're definitely going to be a great pilot. But, you know, it's no secret that recently we've been seeing so many airplane crashes, near miss collisions, the ATC blackout in New York, lots of flight delays, cancellations. Let's start with the most recent DC crash that happened, what, 2-3 months ago, when a airliner, American Airlines, collided, unfortunately, with a military helicopter. How does that happen, and how do pilots avoid going like this accident happening again?
Yeah, so that was a really tragic accident there. It comes down to a lot of things. Like the aviation world, our process when we take off from one airport and have to get somewhere else, there are hundreds of things that have to go right for that all to work. And all it takes is one thing to go wrong, and now you might have a problem. With the whole DC crash, now I'm not an expert. I don't do, I don't study aviation crashes or anything like that. This is just a pilot's perspective. But from what I saw and from what I know about that airport in particular, DC going in, there are so many procedures that we have to follow, and rules, and places where you can be and places where you can't be,
and that's
because
specific for DC, right?
Yeah, because of the White House and all of the government buildings and areas in that part of the world. So when you go in there, it's already a very high stress environment, right? And when you're stressed out as a pilot, that's usually not the greatest thing ever, because that's when mistakes happen, and that's anything in life.
Yeah.
Now you add on a really, really busy and understaffed airport. And then you add on military training flights going on at a really low level right by the approach path of where these airlines are coming in. And this is something it's not new. It's been going on for a very, very long time. It just was, unfortunately, that time, too many things went wrong at the same time, and then they crashed.
Is there a way where the airliner would be able to communicate with the military aircraft? Because I don't know if I misread an article recently that sometimes there's a disconnect between a military aircraft and like a commercial airliner.
Yeah, so sometimes the military will operate on separate frequencies just because there's stuff that either we don't need to know about as pilots, right? Or they just are doing things too fast, or they're very, very busy doing their thing, and they don't need to hear 80 other airlines coming in and out of DC trying to do their thing as well. So I'm sure that the communication really probably between the two would have been through ATC some way or another. And
can you define ATC for our listeners who are not familiar with ATC?
So air traffic control are the people, that's ATC. They're the people that are basically giving us instructions about where to go, what to do. Like, yes, you can go and land here. No, you can't. Turn around, climb, descend, etc. So those are our eyes in the sky, if you will. They're watching us from the ground on radars, and using their technology to help us navigate and then avoid other airplanes.
Do you think that was a pilot error or a system error? Like the whole DC accident.
So from what I know about the whole thing, the airliner did nothing wrong. They were doing what they were supposed to do. They were on, their approach. They were set up, established, all of that good stuff. The military helicopter, I know, if you listen back to the voice recordings of that whole thing, and they were talking to the military helicopter like, "Hey, you can't be over there," or something like that. Were they doing something wrong? I don't know. If I was the one in the helicopter or in the airplane, maybe I would know. And then again, at ATC, same thing, but you can't really blame any one party for any accident, right? There's always multiple parts that are going into it. And it could have been nobody's fault, and it could have just been, a freak accident, which to me, that's what I think of it as. I would never be like, I would never be like, "Hey, I blame so-and-so or whatever." I think it was a freak accident, but it shed a lot of light onto, hey, ATC maybe you need some more staff.
Right.
Maybe you need people that are a little bit better rested or better trained, right? And it just emphasizes what our job is as pilots, which is just we are risk mitigators. Like that is what we do.
Yeah.
Do you think like pilots are overworked these days? Like, meaning like there's, sometimes you're waiting in line and your flight gets delayed because the crew is not there. Do you think it's because they have a certain amount of time they have to like rest before they work, or how does that work?
Yeah, so there's legal definitions for all of this stuff. There's maximum amount of times that we can fly in a day. There's maximum or minimum amount of rests that we need every day, every month. So the FAA takes care of us as pilots. We are, at least in my job, I'm rarely worked to the max extent, and I usually get very adequate rest. Yeah, there are some companies where you're going to be busy, and there are some days where you're going to be busy. And by the end of the day, you're dog tired. Like all you want to do is go to your hotel room, lay down, go to bed. But in the grand scheme of things, the FAA takes care of us as pilots and makes sure that, hey, we're not going to overwork you, because when you're overworked as a pilot, like imagine you work 10-hour day at work, right? You're exhausted, and then you have to go drive home.
Oh yeah, I know.
And then you get home and you're like, wait, how did I get here?
Right.
You don't remember the drive home at all. That's scary. That's really scary.
And
That's so scary.
So the FAA makes sure for us as pilots, like, hey, here's the minimum amount of rest you need, and here's as much as you're allowed to fly today. And then that's like the bottom line. And that way we're sharp the whole time that we're up there.
I want to ask you this because this is something I've always been curious about. So when you're flying over an ocean or an open area, or you lose contact with the ATC, what do you do then in that type of scenario? What do like pilots do?
So there's a full,
because I'm sure this is something a lot of people like go through. Like,
yeah, I mean, it happens for sure. So there's a full lost communications procedure.
Yeah.
I'll refer to it as lost comms. But there's a full kind of thing that we have to learn, and that's part of actually when you're in flight training in the initial phases. So before you're ever at an airline, before you're ever flying a jet, you're learning what to do if you lose comms. Basically, there's two parts. It's your altitude and your route. And what the FAA has designed is a system where, okay, we have to pick, basically there's 3 different altitudes that we could be using. You pick the highest one, and then you have to follow your route based off of what you were assigned and cleared, etc. And then if you get to a point where, okay, I'm kind of at the end, or, this doesn't make sense, like now you would do what you would be expected to do, if that makes sense. But they have it set up where like they would know eventually, hey, this guy does not have communications. There's a code that we can put in the plane that they'll at least be able to see that they know. So we punch in a number,
and then they get that. Okay.
And then they basically are going to clear the area out and make sure that we can come and get down.
Okay.
Can you tell us about the near collision that just happened in Minot?
Yeah, so that one was between a B-52, which is one of our probably the biggest Air Force plane that they have. They're massive. These things are unbelievably huge.
Like 8 engines or something?
Yeah, 8 engines. They're massive. They're unbelievable aircraft. And then just an airliner. And from what I know about that, so the airliner was going into Minot Airport. The B-52 was doing a flyover of the North Dakota State Fairgrounds. They were having a
like
festival
a event
going on.
Yeah.
So they were doing a flyover. And from what I've been reading about Minot's airport, I've actually never flown into that one because there's not much to do in Minot, so there's not a lot of reasons to go. But in Minot, their airport, their tower has no radar, which some airports don't have that. That's normal. It sounds crazy, but basically,
That sounds scary.
Basically, what it means is the tower can't see the planes. It's all visual. So it's the tower looking outside, and it's pilot reports. Like the tower will say, hey, tell us when you're on a 5-mile final, which is the last part of,
But you can still communicate with the tower. The tower just can't see you on the radar.
On the screen, exactly. So from what I understand, the tower was informed of this B-52 doing the flyover, and the tower also knew of the location of the airline. But the tower, or somewhere in that event, each pilot didn't know about the other one, basically. So as the airline was coming in to land, they were like, I think I see an airplane. And then as they got closer, they're like, yeah, that's definitely an airplane. Like, okay, we're really, really close. And so what we're trained to do as pilots is if you're going to have like a head-on collision is both pilots should turn to the right. That's the industry standard.
Okay.
So
So they were coming head on towards each other.
that's what it seemed like to me. Yeah, that's what it seemed like. So what the airline pilot did is when it says like in the news he did an aggressive maneuver or whatever, he banked hard to the right, got out of the way.
Oh my God.
Which is the safest thing that you can do because you're expecting the other guy to do the same thing, which means you're turning away from each other.
Did the other pilot see him? The B-52's pilot? Do we know?
I don't know if they said. So it also gets tricky because when they go to investigate these things, when the military is involved, there's just an extra layer of privacy
and security.
Yeah, and you're going to hear 100 different things from 100 different news outlets and articles and everything like that. So until the NTSB, which is basically the entity that goes over all of these incidents and accidents, releases their official statement, nobody will ever know the full truth. Yeah, but it seemed like, honestly, got too close, turned out of the way. Yes, it's going to freak passengers out, but everybody was safe at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was just amazing.
I can't even imagine like being on that plane and just.
Well, one of the scariest things I've ever gone through on a plane was I was landing from Miami to Cleveland, and we're approaching the runway, and we're literally like so close to landing, and then next thing you know, you feel the plane coming back up. Like as soon as we're about to hit the ground, and then I turned on my phone. I was freaking out, and the pilot was saying nothing, and I get it. The pilot's trying to do his job, but sometimes I'm like, I need to hear the pilot's voice just for ease of like what is happening. Why are we going back up aggressively back into the sky? I texted my friend who works at the airport. I'm like, yo, like I'm on a Frontier plane. I was just about to land, and then the plane had to go back up. She's like, yeah, there was probably a plane on the runway, and the pilot had to just avoid. I'm like, this is just normal. She's like, yeah, it's happened before. I'm like, this is.
It actually happened to me too before. Is this Spirit airline?
But it's normal. Like the plane is capable of getting back up safely, right?
Yeah,
and like maneuvering around and.
Yeah, so in our world, we call that a go around.
Yeah, go around. That's what they call
and
it.
Essentially, there's a million different reasons why, and really on every landing, you probably could say something or the other was maybe worthy of a go around.
Yeah.
So it could have been they just caught a weird gust of wind right before they were going to land, and it wasn't going to be super safe.
Super safe, yeah.
Could have been the airplane in front of them took too long to get off the runway, and now we have to go around and come back in line.
Okay.
It could be something as simple as literally there's a groundhog on the runway, and it's just like not safe at that point. So we just go around. But there's so many reasons why. And it's a huge thing that like when you learn to fly in the very beginning, right? You teach your students how to go around before you ever teach them how to land. You want to teach them how to get out of trouble before you teach them how to get into trouble, if that makes sense. So we'll spend, you spend 2 or 3 days of just full on get real close to the runway, and then, hey, sorry, go around. And then, once your students are really, really comfortable with that, then you teach them how to land.
Speaking of landing, how come some land, like, when you're landing, how come some are smooth and some are just like the other day when I was flying back from my trip, I was flying in from Washington to Cleveland. I have never had a worse landing in my life. I mean, I don't know what happened. It was so hard and like crazy. I thought the plane was about to like start flipping. I'm not kidding. Like I don't think in my how many ever years I've been traveling have ever had like a rough landing. Like what's the difference?
Yeah, how do pilots perfect?
Yeah.
That like
smooth
landing.
Yeah, if you ask me, right, pilots are egotistical people. My landings are always perfect. I've never had a bad landing ever. But
that's what they all say.
Right. But in reality, there are so many factors that go into it. So it could be a weather related thing where it's just real windy and you need to get the plane on the runway. And if it's not buttery smooth, like we call it, we buttered a landing is when it's super soft and the wheels are just squeaks on the runway. Sometimes it's a weather thing. Sometimes it's you just mess up, right? Like we're not perfect humans, and these airplanes are ginormous, heavy things that are traveling hundreds of miles an hour through the air, and it's sometimes difficult to land it perfectly. It also depends on the size of the runway. So sometimes you're flying into shorter runways, and you need to get the plane down and stopped because you only have so much runway to use. There was just an incident in Cuyahoga County Airport, just east of downtown Cleveland, where a plane ran off the end of the runway because they tried to make it seem to me, but then again, who knows? But they, tried to land and they just ran off the end of the runway. Yeah, they overshot it. So sometimes you just have to get the airplane down. And that's something that I would always tell my passengers is, hey, you know, we're flying into a 5,000 foot runway. We can make that no problem, but I'm going to make sure that we're stopped on the runway, and it might just be a little bit more aggressive today.
Than usual.
Firm is a great word to use. But then again, yeah, you do have the slammers every once in a while where you're like, I'm calling my chiropractor.
Right.
That one
Yeah.
I feel that the most in the smaller planes, like these CRJ planes, those hour flights.
Yeah.
Those are when I usually feel like the hard landings the most versus like a bigger plane.
When I was flying from Munich just now, like coming to Washington, I've never been on one of those big planes. It has 2 floors.
Oh, like the A380s?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, those are sick.
Dude, it was
Yeah.
amazing.
And
I was like, what
you
in the hell?
don't feel like you're flying, right? It's just so quiet in there.
No, it just feels like they're like planes like that are so big. Like, how is it harder to, you know, when a plane is departing, is it harder to fly a big plane like that or a smaller? Like, what would you prefer flying?
So it's very interesting because like I've never flown an A380, right?
Yeah.
I fly a private jet, but what I've heard from a lot of these guys that have flown in a lot of different planes is that airplanes are airplanes, and when you're up front flying it, they all sort of feel the same, give or take. The biggest thing is the sight picture. So if you can imagine, right, in a, like you said, you have flown in like a little 2-seater or a 4-seater airplane. Those are pretty low to the ground, right? It's like driving in a sedan. Like you're in a Honda Civic, and then now you're going to go fly this A380. Now you're in a lifted truck.
Yeah.
Everything just looks different. So as soon as you can figure out the sight picture, they all sort of fly the same. They all fly off the same principles, and then it just takes a little bit of practice to sort of perfect those landings.
Yeah. Do you ever see yourself flying commercial, like those big commercial planes, or do you like staying in like the private sector?
I love my job.
Yeah.
I love my job. I don't work. I go have fun.
I
go
love
fly
that
an
for
airplane.
you.
I go to amazing places. I fly fantastic people, and I fly with fantastic people. My company is awesome. I have no complaints whatsoever. Do I ever see myself flying something like an A380 or going to an airline? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe one day.
It depends. Yeah, I mean, right now, no. Like, I love where I am right now. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, my life goals may change. My desires may change.
Yeah.
I might just be like, you know what? Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go take that job. I'm gonna go fly a really big airplane.
Yeah.
But for me right now, like where I am, I'm where I need to be. I'm where I want to be. So
is 10-year-old Zach right now just so happy to see you?
10-year-old Zach never probably ever dreamed of flying an airplane, believe it or not. No.
Wow.
I for the longest time I thought I was going to be in the military, not really as a pilot, just thought I was going to join the military. And then that was sort of my drive force through like middle school and high school. And then it all just sort of transitioned into now I want to fly for the military. And then I was like, you know what? I don't really know that that's what I want to do. I want to go see what there is, you know, what else is there in the world. And my whole kind of perspective flipped. But I think that's a very valuable thing for people. Like I've listened to your previous podcast, and both of you have had similar experiences where you think you have one life path, and then all of a sudden a door opens, and then now 20 doors have opened. And then you're like, wow, I have all these options. What am I going to go do with myself? And I think that is like the biggest thing for people in today's world is that I feel like a lot of people are like pushed into a career, pushed into a job, or, you know, they're very one track minded. And I think that allowing myself to open up to other possibilities, I would have never been here, you know, if it wasn't for that.
Absolutely. So like every door open is just a redirection to something that you might want to do.
Right.
So I love that for you. Yeah. And this is what we try to tell people, like you've listened in our previous episodes, like we've both transitions from different careers, and we're continuing to grow and develop, and just part of life. And you explore different things, and you find yourself doing something that you love, or maybe not, and then you just switch gears again, right? Okay.
I agree with that. I feel like as you grow, like I told her earlier, as you grow older and as you evolve and change, sometimes your life path changes, and that's okay. Like to switch from one place to another in life, you know.
From one terminal to another.
Yes. Let's go back. So one thing I'm really excited to hear what you have to say is, and something that I've always been afraid of, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are, turbulence. Turbulence. Everyone thinks it's danger. I used to think it's danger until I really researched it and Tell us about turbulence and
Yes.
different types of turbulence.
Please ease our listeners' anxiety.
Yes.
Anxiety.
So I'm going to answer your question with a question. On the drive here, were the roads perfectly smooth?
Nope.
Nope.
Cleveland's potholes.
Absolutely not, right? If you've ever been on a boat, or for any of you listeners, if you've ever been on a boat, have you ever been on the water when it's absolutely 100% perfectly smooth without a wave? The answer is no. If you've been on a boat, you know waves are a part of it, right? So just like a pothole on a road or a wave on a lake, we have turbulence in the air. The only difference is the reason why people are so scared of turbulence, in my opinion, is turbulence, you can't see it, right?
Yeah.
There's no neon sign that says, hey, turbulence is coming up. There's no warning for us as
Right.
pilots. There are signs and indicators and things we can see, like a giant thunderstorm. Probably don't want to go fly through it, right? That's going to be bumpy and nasty and gross. But yeah, the reason why people are so afraid of turbulence is because you can't see it. What I would say to passengers on these airplanes is if you think of it like how I just described it, right? You're going to drive from your house to the airport, you're going to go out on a boat, and you're expecting a pothole, you're expecting a wave. Expect the turbulence on the flight. It's our job as pilots to read the weather and the terrain and various other factors and try to stay away from the turbulence as best as we can. It's really funny as a pilot. Probably the thing that cracks me up the most on the radios is when you hear 10 different guys complain about turbulence at 35,000 feet. And they're like, can we go higher? Can we go lower? And then it's like, hey, how's it at 40,000? How's it at 43,000? And everyone's talking to each other, trying to figure out where the smooth air is. We do our best to stay out of turbulence because, you know, you guys might do one flight a month or one flight a year. We're doing 3, 4, 5 flights a day.
Right.
You know, so we don't want to be in the turbulence any more than you guys want to. But turbulence is safe. Now there's levels of turbulence, and if you get into like severe or extreme, which would be the worst turbulence, it can be dangerous. But that is something that we are doing everything in our power to avoid. So if you ever get caught in something really, really bad, like you've seen stuff on the news lately of like people, first of all, not wearing their seatbelts,
Yeah,
Or
right?
getting up and walking.
When you hear the little chime go off and we flip our switch and say, put your seatbelts on,
put
there's a
that
reason
seatbelt on,
for it,
yep.
right? So first of all, wear your seatbelts, people, especially even if the sign's off and you're sitting in your seat, just wear it. Like you don't feel it on you, wear it loose. And if you hear the thing, tighten it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you see stuff like that and people are getting hurt. It's usually because the seatbelt's not on or you're up trying to go to the bathroom when you're not supposed to be, things like that. But yeah, we do our best to stay out of the turbulence.
So I know because I've looked into it. I'm telling you, I was like an aviation like junkie growing up, and I've read that there's a range like 1 to 5. 5 is being like the extreme, and usually what we experience on like a normal turbulence is like on a 2, at a level 2. So it's not even that bad. So that kind of helped ease my anxiety on planes.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I've traveled with friends recently who can't even fall asleep for a second, and like it's not even maybe for me because I got used to it at this point because I fly so much. But I think it's good for the listeners to understand that turbulence is very normal. It's coming from a pilot, and you know it's just part of flying.
Yeah, I used to be so scared. I used to every time I would be on a plane and turbulence would happen, I would like praying to God. I'm like, God help me. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. And then now I'm just like so okay with it.
Nonchalant.
The more you fly, the more you kind of get to like know it and everything. And
I'm gonna like give some like the listeners a little just something that I've been doing recently. I found this website called Turbly. Have you heard of it?
No,
so it's like turbli.com, and then you put in your flight information and it gives you the data for today's flights and tomorrow's flights. You pick your flight and it gives you like an expected turbulence report, and it's usually pretty accurate. So it would tell me, okay, hey, there's gonna be a bumpy ride midway through your flight, and it'll kind of like
you sent me that when we were
I
on
sent
the way
you
to
that,
Miami.
right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's pretty accurate. It's like, but it eases my anxiety knowing that there's going to be a bumpy ride.
Another thing that eases my anxiety a little bit, and it's helped throughout the flight when the pilot comes on and like warns you that it's gonna happen. But when it comes out of nowhere, it's like, oh my God, is the plane crashing? It's automatically what you think of.
I open up the window, I'm like, is everything okay? I'm like, you know,
I'm like, what's
outside.
happening?
But there's like nothing going on outside.
Yeah.
Have you ever gone through like personally, have you gone through like a bad turbulence?
I mean, absolutely. Especially so like I said, now flying professionally or, with an airline or whatever you might be doing, those pilots, we are doing our best to stay out of the turbulence as best as possible. When I was instructing and in these smaller planes and when I was a student, it's really hard to sometimes avoid the turbulence because you're a lot slower. You can't go as high. You're limited, right, with your options. So I've been in stuff. I've bounced my head off the ceiling of an airplane before. And then it's like, okay, grab your seatbelts and cinch them down because you're in for a little bit of a wild ride. But yeah, I mean, I've been in it plenty of times. It's nothing crazy. And also you have to imagine too, right? What would bounce my head off the ceiling in a little small plane to a 7.3 flying out of Hopkins, you might not feel it at all. So it also depends on the size of the airplane. Yeah. But yeah, I think with turbulence too, something that freaks people out, right? It's a mental barrier because you're not in control. Yeah. So when you're sitting in the plane, you're not in control. So you are already anxious because now I'm not in control. And you've read the 10 horror stories over the last, this past year. And you're like, oh my gosh, are we going to be safe? And this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But you have to imagine too, every day there are, I mean, I don't know the number, but it's tens of thousands of flights, probably hundreds of thousands of flights going on like worldwide. And there may be 1, 2, 3, not even accidents, but just incidents. A tire blows on the runway. Yeah. And then, everyone's going to freak out about it, but it's.
And that's another thing. Like lately, everyone's been freaking out, like, what the hell is going on with the air, this and that. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, all these incidents that are happening that media is covering now happen on a daily basis. So why all of a sudden is media so focused on these little incidents that happen? It makes no sense.
It's clicks and views, and you know what I mean? When people want to listen, the media is going to feed them what they want to hear. Of
course, yeah.
And it's a statistical fact in the US at least. There's over 600 towered airports. So by towered, I mean that has air traffic control at that airport. And every day there are at least 3 incidents. So like I was saying, like a tire pops or somebody goes onto the runway and they're not supposed to be there or something like that, right? Accidents are very, very rare.
What about birds?
Birds happen. I've hit birds flying. Okay. I've hit birds. I've hit bats.
Bats. Wow.
That's an interesting one.
So it happens. It's scary. That's like the whole like Sully
thing. Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
Bird strike.
No, actually, I'm not.
Yeah, Captain Sully, the one who landed in the Hudson River because he hit a bird strike. Leaving.
Oh yes,
they made a movie about it with what's his name, Tom Hanks.
Yes.
Fantastic
movie. I mean,
but yeah, I mean, it happens, and it's actually really funny. So this is a pilot little insight thing. When we listen to the weather at these airports, so you always have to listen to the weather before you can go in and land. And tons of airports, Cleveland Hopkins included, because we're by the water, will say birds, or it'll say caution bird activity in the vicinity of the airport. That's the exact verbiage they use. So tons of these airports will tell us like, hey, there's birds, by the way. Doesn't really mean anything necessarily because it's not like we can't make the birds go away. But I've had plenty of times flying out of Cuyahoga County where they'll have to send somebody out like in a truck or a golf cart and try to scare these birds away from the runway.
Oh my God, that's
really?
Because there's too many. So we'll sit there and be waiting, and our passengers are like, hey, like what's going on? And we're like, oh, like you see that guy over there driving around in his truck? Yeah, he's scaring the birds away.
That's actually interesting. I love that. Imagine having a job, driving a truck around, scaring birds. I mean, that's amazing.
So let's talk about your daily routine as a pilot. Like, what do you do first thing in the morning before you fly? Is there like, do you work out? Do you drink lots of water? Or do you just roll out of bed and just put on a suit and show up to the airport?
So depending on what time I'm flying, like we have a 5 a.m. flight. I'm not getting up and working out or anything crazy. I'm not a big breakfast guy, but I like to have some sort of food in me before I go fly. So usually I like wake up, do the normal, kind of morning routine, brush my teeth. I'll take a shower in the mornings just to like wake myself up. I'll go downstairs and usually just have like a protein bar. That's like, that's enough food for me in the mornings. I'm not a big breakfast guy. Show up to the airplane. So we always show up, we show up an hour before we're supposed to leave. Usually I get there about an hour, 15, hour and a half early, just because I don't ever want to be rushed. I like to just take my time. I'll have a cup of coffee at the airport. We get coffee ready for the plane. So that means the pilots are having a cup of coffee too. Get everything kind of all set up, look over the flight, look over the weather en route and everything like that, and set up sort of a passenger briefing. So I always take a lot of pride in my passenger briefings, making sure that, like we were talking about, I'm letting them know about turbulence, or if it's a short runway and the landing is not going to be the most comfortable thing they've ever felt. If there's going to be some storms that we might have to chase. How long is it going to take us to get there? All of those things are really important because then they can set up rides, they can set up, hotel rooms or whatever it might be. Like if, hey, you want to go to Hilton Head, but Hilton Head is really bad today. We can go to Savannah, and then you're going to have to figure out how to get to Hilton Head from there. Yeah, I'll show up a little bit early, get everything kind of ready to go, and then we sort of just kind of hang out, wait for the passengers to get there. Myself and the other pilot will give each other briefings on the flight, emergency procedures we go over every flight, and that just keeps us sharp. So we're not, I always like to think of emergencies as I'm never expecting emergency, but I'm also planning on it happening.
You're prepared.
I'm ready for it. So if something was to happen somewhere during that flight, we're ready to go. Like we have that stuff down. To where we could do it with our eyes closed. That's
very
muscle
comforting
memory.
to know.
That is actually very comforting to know. Yeah.
So
I agree.
we do it. The airlines are doing it before every flight. You're going over, hey, this is emergency procedure A, B, and C for our takeoff. This is something en route. This is when we're going into our destination. So we're talking about it. We're briefed on backup options for like a secondary airport. Sometimes we pick even a third airport if the weather's really bad. We're sort of set up, ready to go. So we get there early, and that's why like being awake is a great thing for us to do. So, adequate rest. We're sharp. We've got, taking a nice shower in the morning and a coffee.
Awake.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, so like when we're cruising and we're on a flight that's like maybe 3-4 hours where you got time to chill. What do you guys do in the cockpit? Do you sleep? What do you talk about? Like, tell us all the
Give us the unfiltered tea.
We want to know the tea.
The unfiltered tea. We don't sleep. That would be bad.
Okay.
But it really just depends, right? Sometimes you fly with somebody and they're not super talkative and you kind of get that vibe, and then you just are quiet and you're doing whatever, and you just go over the things that you need for your flight. We talk about just important things. Other times you can have a great time. Especially myself, I love to just talk. So if we're up there in the plane, I want to be talking to these guys. How's the wife at home? How are the kids doing?
Yeah.
What are your hobbies? What do you like to do? And then that way it's kind of cool. We make plans for where we're going. I was just on Memorial Day, we were in Sarasota, Florida, and I was like, hey, I brought a cooler backpack. Let's go to the beach and hang out. And so we, brought some snacks and some drinks and waters and stuff. And we weren't flying for the next 2 days. So we were off. So we were like, hey, let's go to the beach and have a good time.
So nice.
So we made plans and we had fun.
So is that like all covered for you guys by the airline company?
Yeah. So our rooms are covered. We get a rental car to share between the two of us. That's covered. Ubers to and from if we need it are covered. We don't really have expenses, and then we get money for food.
Nice.
Basically, our only expenses are if we want to go do something, extravagant, something fun, and if we go over our daily quote unquote budget for food, which we usually do.
Do you like airline food? Tell me. Do you eat it?
Like on an airplane?
Yeah.
No, I think it's gross. I think their snacks are bad.
Yeah.
The only thing that I like are those Biscoff crackers.
Oh yeah, those are great.
Those are good,
With
but
some
like
coffee.
it's very rare for them to ever give those out anymore.
It's like pretzels now and peanuts. Like who gives peanuts still? Like isn't this like an allergy?
I know.
issue?
You're right.
I think about that all the time.
Right.
I'm like,
I'm
But yeah.
allergic to nuts.
Okay, let's do a quick round of rapid fire where we just ask you just fun questions and you just pick one answer.
Okay.
So window or aisle?
Aisle.
Aisle? Did you just say aisle?
He said aisle.
What? That's a first.
Oh yeah, absolutely aisle.
Why is that?
Well, 2 reasons. One, I have the best seat in the house when I'm up front.
Okay.
So a window seat to me
You
is not the
always
same.
right.
And number 2, the aisle, I like just the extra room. I can kind of relax my arms a little
Kick
bit.
your
I
leg
can stick
out.
a leg out. Yeah. Only thing is I'm bumping into all the flight attendants, but
Oh, that's
That's
maybe
okay.
that might not be a bad thing.
Is it true that guy? We'll go back to the game. I just really want to ask this question before I forget it. Is it true that pilots and like flight attendants like kind of like have a hookup and they hook? I'm being
Is a
serious.
Mile High Club
Do they date?
real? True? Does this exist?
they're not mile high clubbing. I wouldn't say that, but yeah. Well, I mean, you think about it, just like with any job, right? If you work in the same place with somebody for so many hours, you're going to develop
Some sort of
some
emotion.
sort of a relationship. Sometimes people date. Sometimes it's let's just hang out, whatever it might be. But yeah, I mean, pilots and flight attendants, you're with each other so often that it's like yeah, let's go out and have some drinks or something, or maybe you're both home based in Cleveland, and you find out that you live close to each other, and you go on a date or something like that. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I would say it's a very, very cliche thing for sure. But yeah, pilots and flight attendants for forever have always been.
Yeah.
That's kind of cute.
Yeah. I feel like
It's
it'd
like a
be a
cute
great,
duo.
cute duo. Okay, what was the worst airport that you've ever landed at to this day?
I'm gonna go with JFK, simply because the taxi to get from where you land or where you're trying to take off from to where you're dropping off passengers or picking them up is miserable.
It's long.
It's just long. I mean, it takes like 30, 45 minutes. It's a couple miles worth of taxiing.
I try to avoid JFK as much as I can when I'm flying.
Yeah.
I actually, on the other hand, do not like LaGuardia. I hate LaGuardia Airport. I think they're about the same.
The whole New
tomato,
York,
tomato, but like I hate
Yeah.
LaGuardia.
the whole New York airspace is just
Insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. What about, favorite city to fly into?
Fort Myers, Florida.
Oh,
I love Fort Myers. Has a special place in my heart. I used to live there. I love, love, love being in Fort Myers.
The whole area, Naples and Tampa.
And I just love the west coast of Florida.
Yeah.
I think, to me, the west coast of Florida is significantly better than the east coast of Florida. It's a slower pace of life. The water is warmer.
Stunning, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Most chaotic passenger moment. Have you experienced it?
So the passengers that I fly are honestly pretty great.
Okay.
They treat us really well. They're very, very kind. They're very, very low maintenance, if like that's the right word. But they're just easy to fly with, easy to be with. I haven't had super crazy experiences with passengers. I genuinely think that's more of like a airline thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Spirit Airlines.
Yes.
Frontier.
You cram a couple hundred people on a flight, and they're delayed, and they're tired, and they're drunk. They're drunk from the hotel bar, and things happen.
Have you ever flown out of Vegas on a Spirit airline? Because I have. On a late
I've
flight.
always done like Frontier from them.
I've done a late flight, a 9 p.m. flight from Vegas. You do never want to take that flight.
Why? What happened? Tell us.
I mean, what he just said. You got drunk, hungover people who have just lost money at the casino,
Oh my goodness.
mad about their, loss of money, the late flight, and you don't want to be flying with those type of passengers.
They fell in love and got married in 2 days.
Right, exactly.
They're missing their new wife.
I love that. Okay, one last question. What's the secret pilots don't tell their passengers, but maybe should? Is there one? Is there like a little inside scoop?
We try to be very transparent with our passengers because that builds trust, and it goes two ways. I mean, if there was anything, it would be probably like if we're delayed for whatever reason. If it's something major, like at the airport, you might not want to be like, hey, somebody just crashed and now we're going to be delayed a couple hours. You might be like, hey, there was an accident at the airport. We're not, you're not lying or keeping anything from our passengers, but you also don't want to freak them out to the point where they don't want to fly anymore. So it's not even like a white lie, but it kind of is. You just want to make sure that like you want to be very careful with what you say sometimes because you don't want to ever freak anybody out. But we would never, like, if somebody asked us, hey, point blank, like what's going on, especially like some of the owners of our aircraft, like we will tell them what's going on for sure. But yeah, I mean, maybe that, I would say maybe like the other thing is just like how we are like up in the front, like while we're flying, like we look the part, we dress the part, we act the part, but like we're also like super, super fun people. So like when we're up in the air, like we want to go have fun and we're like talking, cracking jokes, whatever it might be, or maybe you're on the radios laughing with air traffic control every once in a while. So I think like a lot of people just see like, the uniform and they see us flying these planes and they're like, oh, these guys are probably like super, intimidating, strict, fun people. But in like reality, like we want to hang out with passengers. We want to like, let's go
Like build a
fishing.
relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I know there's like a lot of like people these days that are like very afraid of flying, especially with everything going on. You got a lot of scared people out here. So like, tell me like what's some advice that you can give somebody that's afraid to take a flight because of everything that's going on, or just like they're nervous overall to like fly.
talk to a pilot, honestly. Like we've experienced it all, seen it all, done it all twice, 3 times. So we can usually kind of figure out what's going on in your brain and try to help you calm down. I think that's totally a huge thing. I also think something that's very interesting is if somebody like that is deadly afraid of flying, go to like a local flying club or local airport and go sit in one of those little airplanes and just go fly for like 20 minutes
Really?
and get your hands on the controls, be with a flight instructor and feel the airplane out a little bit. And I think that getting to feel that and actually do it yourself and realize that it's okay and we're not going to die every time we step on an airplane will make people feel a little bit better too. And then if that doesn't work, just go to the airport bar and have a couple cocktails, honestly. Something to loosen yourself up a little bit.
So the golden question, the $1 million question, is Captain Coffey single?
Captain Coffey is single.
You heard that, ladies.
He's single, you guys.
What is DM?
That's so funny. Would you? I have another question. I'm like so into this right now. What about like helicopters? Which one do you think is more dangerous, the helicopter or the plane?
Definitely a
Smaller
Yeah,
plane.
if you could see my facial reaction,
Yeah.
you said helicopters, they terrify me personally.
Really?
I've never flown in a helicopter. I'd
don't
never
blame you.
want to fly in a helicopter. Helicopters just are aerodynamically not designed to fly. And we have just created a way that they can fly. The major difference to me, right? Like we were saying earlier, an airplane loses its engine or engines if you're in a jet.
can glide.
We can glide.
Yeah.
In an air, and, you know, we're at 40,000 feet. I can glide for a long time and I have a lot of range of deciding where I need to go if, you know, if all else fails. If you're in a helicopter,
There's nothing else.
they have like auto rotation and stuff that sort of helps to counter it. But, you know, you see like the spins and they come down to the ground and it's like crash and burn type of deal. That's a little bit scarier. And so I'll stick with my airplanes.
Yeah.
Exactly what my dad has said. Like growing up, like my dad traveled everywhere and he's not afraid of flying. He's like, the one thing he'd never get on is a helicopter. So that stuck with me. And the more I like understood the way helicopters work, it's like, no, thank you, I'll pass.
Yeah. I've
But
never been on one, but I've actually always wanted to do like a little helicopter. You know.
I think it's one of those things.
It's fun.
Like,
Yeah.
it's one of those
I
things.
jumped out of an
She
airplane.
actually jumped out of airplanes. Yeah.
I jumped out of an airplane twice.
Yeah,
Can
see,
you
like
believe that?
to me, why would you ever jump out of a perfectly good airplane? But also, I would just
laughing
I went
at you.
skydiving, but the thing is, like,
Larry's not surprised. He's like cracking up at you.
you know what I always wondered on planes, and like, God forbid if like you are flying and the plane starts to go down, and why can't they, instead of like life vests, why can't they have parachutes for people? So I can jump out of an airplane, put my parachute on, and fly around. And like, what if I'm over land, and what's a life vest gonna do to me?
like on an airline. You're saying
Yeah, why don't I
parachutes?
wonder why they don't have like parachutes?
Well, there's a couple. I mean, parachutes are really expensive, and there's a lot of rules with parachutes of how often they have to be replaced. So you can't have a parachute that's been on like a life jacket. I don't know how long, but I'm sure it could be on an airline for 10, 15,
I'm sure,
20
yeah,
years. Like it's
yeah,
all it is.
yeah.
It's just something to make you float.
Yeah.
You know, a parachute, something like that. Those are like frequently changed out if you were going to have them. There's like aerobatic airplanes that do all the stunts and stuff at air shows. Like those guys, those are checked and those are inspected and replaced every so often. And they're like a couple $1,000s. Like it's not cheap to have parachutes. So it comes down to a money thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess like,
Also, using a parachute, I don't think it's easy. Like, you can't just get a passenger to wear one and tell him jump on a flame. He's gonna expect him to understand how to use a.
right.
Well, just pull the string.
I
and
think
then
I'll
there
take my
should-
chances. I don't think I want to be jumping out of the plane.
Well, the other thing is the poor flight attendants, right? They give their safety briefing every flight.
I think I'd rather die in my peace,
Yeah.
not die willingly jumping out of a plane.
And if you think about it seriously, and like the more that I've flown and like I give passenger briefings every flight, so I pay attention to what the flight attendants say just because I respect what they do, and nobody else does, right? Flight attendant comes on, they're giving their safety brief that everyone's got AirPods in, they're watching a movie on their iPad, and they don't care at all until there's a problem, and now it's like, hey, flight attendant, what am I supposed to do with my air mask, whatever?
Right.
So, imagine the safety briefing for that. Hey, this is your parachute. Like people, the anxiety of flying would
Be worse.
be unbelievable. I would probably be nervous. If I ever got in a plane and they said, hey, here's your parachute, here's how to use it, I would be like, oh no.
Wait, how are you gonna put a baby in a parachute? Are you gonna how they tell you to help yourself first? Like, okay, you have the parachute on. Then how are you gonna get a baby on a parachute?
I'm gonna put the baby in the holder, and honey, we're flying.
You think you're gonna think that sharply when you're falling out of the sky?
Yeah, I don't know. I just always think of that
God.
stuff like
Okay.
You could bring your own parachute.
Hey,
shit.
you've jumped out of planes.
Your carry-on, just bring a
Unfiltered
parachute.
brew air, everybody.
They'd probably have some questions for you, like, hey, why are you bringing a parachute?
that. Imagine me coming in. We're flying to like Florida or something, and
It's your security, and then like PSA pulls out like a parachute. Note to self: do not fly with Katarina anytime soon.
imagine that. Oh my god, that would actually be funny. I think I would go viral or something.
I love that, but
I wouldn't even think they would accept me going through the security, just like how they didn't accept my sausage chicken coming back from Europe. I love it's a salami called poli. Okay, you can
Okay.
only get it in Europe.
okay.
And I took it and I hid it in my suitcase, and they took it from me.
Was it packaged?
It was packaged. It was all like
Really?
sealed and everything. But then they'll let moonshine go through.
Well, I don't know.
So why is moonshine more important than my chicken sausage?
I have no idea.
So mad. I really wanted to eat that.
You're gonna have to
Whatever.
bring it.
I'll just have to go back to Europe.
Next
Right.
episode.
I'll just have
Right, TSA.
I'm gonna. Yeah, we should.
TSA agent. Okay, guys, we can wrap this up.
Thank you so much for
Thank
flying
you,
with us
Captain
today.
Zack Coffey.
I think it went pretty smooth. I think
Great flight.
Yes, it was amazing. What an amazing episode, you guys. Thank you again for listening. Don't forget to follow, share, and
Subscribe.
We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple.
And please let us know if you enjoyed this episode. And thank you for flying on Unfiltered Brew Air.